outcome of November's election has created a lot of talk about Republicans wondering if they need to change their way of thinking. Maybe move a little closer to the center in hopes of gaining votes in the next election cycle. But my next guest says that's nonsense, and conservatives ought to push their values even harder. Joining us now is the president of the Family Research Council and my friend Tony Perkins. Tony, great to have you here.
Thank you, Governor. Good to be with you.
The post-mortem of the election has been for a lot of the, and I like to call them the so-called leaders, because I'm not sure they've led us very well, but they've said, you know what we need to do? We need to get away from some of these very divisive issues, these value issues, like the sanctity of life and the sanctity of marriage. And we need to forget about that and just focus on cutting taxes. What say you?
Well, the problem is they have. That's why they've lost the last two national elections. I mean, if you look at John McCain, he was certainly no outspoken social conservative. In fact, he barely checked the boxes. And then Mitt Romney, you know, I like him, he's a nice guy, a great family man, good, you know, picture of a family. But, you know, he really was hesitant to talk about marriage, talk about the life issue, and his record obviously didn't match with his positions that he had adopted. I mean, you go back and tell me the last time that a moderate beat a liberal in a national election.
Well, you'd have to go back probably to Richard Nixon, because if you look, you had Gerald Ford, then Ronald Reagan clearly was a social conservative and put it front and center. George Bush in his first term was, and then in his second term kind of backed away and was defeated. Bob Dole, John McCain, Mitt Romney.
Case closed.
Yeah, there you go. Okay, so maybe that's not the right way, but boy, that's the way the media has portrayed it.
Let me add a little color commentary there. Let's go back to when you were a candidate for president. A campaign.
I knew you were going to bring that up. That painful memory of where that went.
Well, let me tell you, we're sitting here today because you had a platform for a message that people connected with. You had a campaign that had little resources. You fast forward 4 years to the candidate who had that very similar message in this last election cycle, Rick Santorum. Again, the same story. No resources, no backing from the establishment, but who almost captured the nomination. Same case as you. It was that message that people were motivated by and engaged over.
Were there fewer evangelicals voting this time than 4 years ago?
That was the challenge in this election, and there was a lot more effort, and I can attest to it because I spent literally about 2.5 months on the road working in the evangelical community, registering. We registered over 500,000 new voters, and it was interesting. One of those establishment consultants said, look, evangelicals are going to vote for Romney. They have nowhere else to go. Well, in the post-mortem of the election, they did. They stayed at home. The numbers were down in terms of the overall percentage and the numbers voting. And the reason was they weren't motivated. And we heard over and over, they are so put off by Barack Obama's policies, they will turn out. That was a factor. It got them about 80% of the way, but the rest of the way that is carried by believing in a candidate, in his vision and his message for the future. And it didn't happen.
What happens to the Republican Party and its prospect for elections if it decides that it's going to just sort of disengage from value issues, which that's the conversation being held?
I think you're going to continue to see them losing national elections. Let's go back to where they've been successful. 2006, 2008, Congress, the Republicans in Congress took a beating. Rahm Emanuel hatched a plan to go after moderate Republicans with conservative Democrats, and they took over the majority. Nancy Pelosi was put in as Speaker. They passed Obamacare and all this other stuff on the nation. But then in 2010, those moderate Democrats, conservative Democrats, were defeated by conservative Republicans who ran as pro-life, pro-marriage, and smaller government, less taxes, and that we have now the most conservative House of Representatives in modern history. So those issues win when they come from the heart, as you have shown, and you can talk about them. The problem is we've got some Republicans that only want to talk about these things at election time, only to check the boxes, not because it emanates from the heart.
Well, it's going to be an interesting time to watch and to see if that message continues to permeate in the leadership of the party, because I think, Tony, you're right. If it does, and the pro-life and pro-family voters, who are, by the way, always fiscal conservatives.
Absolutely.
If they have nowhere else to go, they'll either create a third-party movement, they'll become independent and support possibly even conservative Democrats, or they'll just stay home and forget about it. Tony, it's great having you here. And by the way, I would mention to our viewers that the last time the Republicans had a significant win with women, because we always hear that if they push these value issues, they're going to lose with women. But the last time we had a real successful candidate who communicated and won the votes of women was Ronald Reagan, who did not run from those issues. Well, let me just say I'd like to wish all of you and all of your families a very happy and healthy New Year. From New York, I'm Mike Huckabee. Good night and God bless. We'll see you